The story continues as we see Lucille is worried that he messed up badly during a tough boss battle on the 10th level. He's afraid that his master will scold him if he finds out about it. Lucille is considering joining either the Paladin or Templar training to improve his skills, but thinks it's a good idea to grab breakfast first. As Lucille heads to breakfast, he runs into Lumina and some other girls. He greets her and is curious about the girls accompanying Lumina. Lumina tells him that they belong to her group and introduces them as Quina and Lucy, who are like her guards. Is it only me or they both are identical except for the color? Lucille introduces himself to them and wonders if they're also going to have breakfast. Lumina explains that they always have breakfast after their morning training and mentions that she's heard Lucille has been making progress in just 10 days. Lucille admits that he's been upset with himself since yesterday's battle. Lumina asks him to join her for breakfast if he wants to chat about it. Lucille gets excited and agrees. Later we see that Lucille gets scolded for fighting the level 10 white. Lumina warns him that he'll end up in trouble if he keeps doing this. She also states that she hates careless men like that. Lucille expresses his desire to go back to Maritoni for training and becoming stronger. Queen Anne points out that healers can't transfer without a formal appointment from headquarters. Lumina offers to help Lucille with his training, but she warns that it might be tough for a healer. Lucille asks for a chance to try, and the scene shifts to him entering the labyrinth. He explores up to the 12th level without any major surprises. Lucille goes to Catalia's store and hands over his magic stones. Catalia notices that Lucille seems worried and he tells her that she made a strong impression on him the day before. He's curious if she was originally a Templar or Paladin, but Catalia warns him not to pry too much and mentions that being nosy can lead to trouble. She then gives Lucille a magic sack, explaining that he can store items by touching them and reciting the word stow to retrieve something. He just needs to recite retrieve and think about the item. Inside the magic sack, Lucille finds some books, and Catalia tells him that she was instructed by the Pope to put all the tomes they have into it. Lucille mentions that the next day, he safely explored the labyrinth up to level 15. The scene shifts to Lucille meeting the Valkyrie Paladin Regiment. He introduces himself to them, and Luminous suggests the girls introduce themselves to Lucille in their free time. She then announces that they'll begin combat training. Lucille knows that these girls are much more skilled than him, but he's reluctant to attack women. Lumina thinks Lucille is a bit slow and starts the training with a run. Lucille believes it should be easy as he had done plenty of this training in Adventure Guild, but he can't keep up with the girls and they even laugh at him. Determined to catch up, he pushes himself harder, but by the time they stop running, Lucille is 8 laps behind. Lumina divides them into groups for combat training, and she becomes Lucille's partner. She asks him how long he's been using the dual-wielding style, and Lucille tells her he's been using it since he entered the labyrinth. Lumina wants to see how skilled Lucille really is, so she challenges him to attack her using what he learned at the Adventurers Guild. Lucille tries to attack her with a sword and shield, but Lumina effortlessly avoids his attacks and lands a hit on him. Lucille decides to use a spell and recalls Broad's advice about setting traps for stronger opponents. He uses a flash bomb spell called High Heel and tries to attack Lumina again, but she dodges his attack and knocks him out. The scene changes to Queenette and Lucy waking Lucille up, mentioning that Lumina instructed them to take care of him. Lucy is surprised that Lumina knocked Lucille out, as she usually doesn't go so hard on them. Queenette also finds it unexpected and notes Lumina's respect for a healer. Later, they all engage in bodyguard training, with Lumina stating that the defending side wins this time. They discuss the outcome, and Elizabeth points out that the attackers lost because they had Lucille. Lumina agrees, explaining that Lucille's support improved their defense, even though Lucy's group has less experience. Lumina calls Lucille an oddball, and Elizabeth finds it impressive, considering he's just a talented healer. Lucille thinks being called an oddball by Lumina sounds rude and asks for forgiveness. Lumina mentions that 10 days after Lucille registered as a healer, he also joined the Adventurers Guild and treated people for free in exchange for combat training. She's heard that he endured intense training from morning till night, earning nicknames like Masochist and Zombie. She questions whether Lucille can deny being an oddball with such nicknames, and Lucille apologizes. The story shifts to Lucille inside the labyrinth. He feels frustrated because his skills haven't improved despite his training the day before. He expected some progress by now, but he reminds himself not to get too hung up on the numbers and instead focus on putting in more effort. Lucille decides to explore the 16th floor and encounters a group of zombies, which he handles easily. He's grateful for his magic sack, which makes equipping weapons easier. He notices a trap on the ground and, feeling confident in his aura coat and aura barrier, activates it. However, this action leads to him being surrounded by zombies. After a tough fight, he manages to deal with them. Continuing his exploration, Lucille reaches the 20th floor, where he finds a door similar to the one on the 10th floor. He gets a bad feeling about it and discusses it with Catalia. He asks if she knows what's inside the 20th floor main chamber, and Catalia admits that she's unsure but speculates that it might be where another guild member lost their life in the labyrinth. Lucille decides to spend the next 2 days revisiting the 10th floor for training. The scene then shifts to Elizabeth visiting Lucille's room to take him for training. She's puzzled about why she has to assist such a messy person and informs him that they'll be teaching him dual wielding today, so he needs to prepare. Later, Elizabeth engages in a mock battle using dual wielding with one of the girls, but Lumina stops them. She asks Lucille for his thoughts on the battle. Lucille acknowledges that they were both very quick and talented, often thinking several moves ahead. However, he notes that dual wielding made them more vulnerable than he anticipated, restricting their movement. He regrets not considering it more seriously. Lucille then duels with a girl named Ripnir. Despite his attempt to attack, Ripnir knocks him down. He also faces Elizabeth, attempting to use his size advantage, but she dodges his attacks and defeats him. Lucille asks Elizabeth if she briefly disappeared during their fight. She explains that she has an affinity for both fire and water, using them to create an illusion. This allowed her to get behind Lucille and strike him. Lucille realizes that everyone here is more experienced than he thought. The scene shifts to Lucille reaching the 20th level of the labyrinth and facing a group of undead creatures. Afterward, Lucio meets with the Pope and believes that the special paladin training was worthwhile, as it helped him clear the boss room on the 20th level. The Pope mentions that the items left behind by the white creature this time also belonged to a high priest. Together with the white creature from level 10, he had entered the dungeon over a decade ago and lost his way. Lucille wonders if this means that the high priest passed away in the labyrinth, became undead, and turned against the church headquarters. Catalia advises Lucille not to speak about certain things, and the Pope clarifies that they turned against the Republic of St. Charles. He explains that it's been half a century since the underground transformed into a labyrinth. While they don't know the cause of this transformation, back then, it was a vibrant place where many Templars and Paladins dedicated themselves to their studies. Lucille begins to wonder if the Pope was around half a century ago because she appears quite young. The Pope then explains that after the labyrinth emerged, many tried to seal it off. Thanks to their efforts, they prevented the monsters from spilling out. Lucille ponders whether the labyrinth can be defeated. The Pope assures him that it is possible. She explains that by conquering the labyrinth, they can destroy the source of the miasma, which emits from its core. This would make the labyrinth disappear. However, no one has succeeded in doing this so far. She recalls that a skilled group of Templars and Paladins once entered the labyrinth, but the miasma and the challenges of the place slowed them down. Many lives were lost, and eventually, they had to seal the labyrinth's entrance to prevent the monsters from escaping. Currently, they rely on healers as exorcists to keep the monsters in check. The Pope mentions that there have been fewer and fewer people born into Templar and Paladin roles for decades, which has led to a shortage of manpower needed to conquer the labyrinth. She then asks Lucille to continue exploring the labyrinth and inquires if there is anything else he requires for this quest. Lucille expresses his desire for weapons and armor designed to fight undead creatures. The Pope agrees to prepare these items for him. She also offers to promote Lucille when he reaches the healer rank of 7. The Pope plans to leave these items with Catalia, and Lucille is excited about the prospect of getting a promotion. This brings an end to our episode. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel, Any Explainer.